we begin with midterm elections. Whether you stayed up late on election night or picked up a newspaper the next day, you've had a chance to see for yourself the results from election night. The Commonwealth will see a change in its highest office. All 4 ballot questions have been officially answered, and even here locally, Milford residents decided to make a change in their representation in the state legislature. We wanted to get some in-depth reaction to these election results, so I sat down with John Tehan, one of our own Milford TV members and host of a very popular political talk show, to get his take on how the voting went down here in Milford and across the nation. It was a fascinating night to keep an eye on the election results. A lot going on nationwide, a lot going on statewide. I do want to kick off, though, with the election results that hit closest to home, and that's the state rep race and state senate race. A little bit of a shakeup there. We'll get to state senate, but first I wanted to get your thoughts on the state representative race. John Fernandez retaining his seat. Your thoughts there?
Well, thanks, Tim, and yeah, I'll tell you, being a staunch Democrat as I am, it's nice to have that one in the rearview mirror because what's the old expression? There's only one way to go from here. That would be up. So, John Fernandez, it was wonderful to see John retain his seat. He came on my show, All Politics is Local. That's the show that I do here at Milford Cable TV. Several weeks ago, he was great. The interview that we did, and all of it, just totally off the cuff, no notes, anything like that. He talked about all of his accomplishments and what he's done, his work on the gun bill across the aisle with George Peterson, his, all the stuff that he's done on Beacon Hill, so it was great to see him retain his seat, and I'm proud of him. He ran a good campaign and did the job, got himself reelected.
So the incumbent holds on to the seat there. A different story with state senate. Richard Moore, a longtime state senator here, serving the Milford area, 18 years in that seat. Ends up losing out to Ryan Fatman. It was an interesting race to watch, especially down the stretch, and it ended up being a decisive victory for Representative Fatman, winning, I believe, all but one of the cities in which that seat serves, and including getting a victory in Uxbridge, which is the city in which Senator Moore is from. Were you surprised at all that it ended up being that significant of a victory for Mr. Fatman?
I was surprised with the extent of his victory, especially, like you say, winning Uxbridge. Being Moore's hometown, that was pretty disheartening. It's got to be disheartening for the former senator. But at the same time, Ryan out-hustled Senator Moore. He did a great job on his campaign, and kudos to him for having done the legwork necessary to get elected. Ryan was out here last spring knocking on doors. And not only last spring, driving through my neighborhood just a couple of days before the election, there's Ryan on the sidewalk with his Fatman sweatshirt on and a clipboard in his hand. So he worked, and he worked really hard. He deserves all the credit for the victory. Some credit goes out also to his Milford campaign manager, Steve Treadle, good friend of mine, who's been on my show several times. Kudos to Ryan for a campaign well run. That was pretty good. Right now, I'd like to re-extend an invitation to Ryan to appear on All Politics is Local. One thing that he can be sure of, I'll be calling his office just as frequently as I called Senator Moore's office. Being as involved in politics as I am, and also being in the solar industry, I call my senator and my rep frequently, so I'll be talking to Ryan sometime in the future, I'm sure.
4 questions on the ballot. We had the gas tax question, which ended up being the closest margin, 53% to 47% voting to eliminate the automatic increase of the gas tax. Question 2, the bottle bill, which was soundly defeated, 73% to 26%. Question 3, the casino repeal, which I know that you have a lot of personal thoughts on. Yep. That getting defeated by a 60 to 39 margin, and then the paid sick leave, question 4, voted yes 59 to 40%. Just kind of going through those. I know you had a great line that you delivered to me yesterday, just sort of wrapping up these questions all in one thought.
Well, kudos to bluemassgroup.com, my favorite state blog. I go out to bluemassgroup.com all the time. And somebody on Blue Mass Group, one of the editors, put up on the site the other day. So I guess we'll be driving on trash-strewn, pothole-infested roads over crumbling bridges as we go to the casinos after calling in sick. So that's kind of the summation of what happened with the ballot questions. So the way that I was voting on the questions was NYYY, and it was easy to remember that because it goes New York Yankees, yuck. Not that I'm a Red Sox fan, I'm actually a Yankee fan, but a lot of Red Sox fans thought that was pretty fun.
I think if more people had gotten the word out for that slogan, the results might have been a little bit different, at least around here.
Also here in Milford, on the Milford ballot, there was a fifth ballot question asking our state rep to endorse an amendment to the Constitution to take money out of politics, to get big money out of politics, basically to overturn the Citizens United decision from the Supreme Court. That question won here as well in Milford, and I was gratified to see that happen. Upcoming on my show, All Politics is Local, we will be discussing that. I'm going to have somebody from Move to Amend come on my show, and we're going to discuss the movement to get an amendment to the Constitution to get big money out of politics.
And that's great. Certainly an opportunity for viewers to go a lot more in depth on all of these topics if they tune into your show on a regular basis. I did want to quickly touch on things a little bit more sweeping. Obviously, the governor's race. A lot of people, I'm sure, were like me and went to bed on Tuesday night not quite knowing the final results of that race. It really did go down to the wire. It was really fascinating to watch. In the end, it was Charlie Baker, 48.5% to Martha Coakley, 46.6%. And again, the final vote totals just really, really close. Thoughts on how that race ended up going down?
Well, you know, Coakley was at a cash disadvantage, a huge cash disadvantage. Also, we have the late primary here in Massachusetts. That should be revisited. Our primary should happen in June. That would give people time to actually, campaign for the office that they're running for. By the same token, all of the other Democrats running for constitutional offices won, and several of them won handily. So you got to wonder if there was something with our candidate, that perhaps the voter, she just doesn't connect with the electorate correctly. It's hard to say. In the end, though, the outside money, again, going back to Citizens United, the outside money made all the difference. The Republican Governors Association spent more money in the final week before Election Day than Martha Coakley spent in her campaign. It's ludicrous that kind of money can come in and make a difference like that.
And finally, John, just kind of looking at the country as a whole, a very good night for the Republican Party overall. It just kind of seems like with every election, the general public just seems to grow weary of whatever party has control. It shifts to the other side and then shifts back and forth. We just kind of see the seesaw going on right now.
Well, one of the big things nationally was turnout. I was very disappointed in the national turnout. 38.8%, it was something like that, was turnout. That's terrible. People need to realize that everybody turns out for presidential elections. Yeah. You get 57, 60, 65, 70% of people turning out for a presidential election. Nobody turns out for the springtime elections. We have a springtime election coming up in 2015. We'll be lucky if we see 1/6 of the electorate in Milford turn out to decide who's going to be our selectman, who's going to be town clerk, whatever offices are available or on the ballot in the spring. So when you see that, you have to say, people need to understand, the more local your election is, the more your vote counts, the more important it is for you to actually turn out and show up at the polls. You're making a decision on who's going to lead locally, right in your backyard. And from there, certainly you should turn out all the time, but maybe what we need in this country is what they do in Australia, mandatory voting.
It's certainly a time where it's more important than ever for really people to get energized, get out and vote. And the best thing about that is to be educated when you go out and vote. And a great way to be educated about what's going on in politics is to watch John Tehan. Bringing it full circle, All Politics is Local. Again, 4 times you can view All Politics is Local every week here on Milford TV. What have some of the topics that you've had on the show recently?
Oh, I've had a lot of good stuff on there. The show that's on right now is the folks from Pass Mass Amendment. They were on back about a month ago or so. I had them on the air. I took them off the air as the election approached, and then after Election Day, I put them back on because what they're doing is they're gathering signatures to amend the state constitution to ban big money in politics. They're doing this by ballot initiative, so they need to gather signatures. They have until the 19th of November.
A lot of great stuff there, a lot of great stuff to come on All Politics is Local with your host, John Tehan. And John, we thank you so much for your time here on The Informer today.
Tim, thank you for having me.